you were so close so many times in Roubaix, and then Boonen was a teammate of yours at Posta. Was he the first season
Yes.
at Posta? Like,
Yes.
can you what's the difference? Obviously, he's a fast finisher, but there's a lot of fast finishers. What's the difference with someone in Roubaix that goes from they can get a bunch of top tens to someone as prolific, maybe the greatest Roubaix rider ever?
Well, he was just a killer. I mean, as soon as he came on the scene, he had no fear. He had a ton of power. His first training camp, I mean, he was almost riding guys off of his wheels in sprints. Young kid, and that particular Roubaix, he just kind of got a free card to get in the breakaway. And when you're in a breakaway in a rainy Roubaix and not having to do that much work, he kind of had a sort of a free ride and throw that sort of power on that he had, the confidence he had. And he ended up getting, I think, third place that year, but it was certainly a breakout ride for him. But we knew from the day one that this kid was a killer, and he was going to do a lot of things in the sport of cycling.
Because I can't remember the year you came to the line, but I think it was you were coming to the line with Fletcher and Boonen, and you were second, if I remember. But right. like how hard a group was that to sprint out of? You must have been thinking coming in the road, like, oh, this isn't going to go well.
Yeah, no, it's funny. I got a little bit criticized afterwards that, they're like, why didn't you attack? You guys were away for the last 15K. It's like, what are we going to do? You're 250 kilometers into, the hardest race on the calendar. You're going 40K an hour. What am I going to do? Go 42K an hour for 600 meters and for like a TV attack? You're not going anywhere. Like, you had to go all in for the sprint. And the chances were very low that I was going to beat Boonen. That was just there, but you still got to try.
George, I've chatted to a lot of lads on the podcast who are transitioning out of cycling into life after cycling. I've had Swain Tufts recently on the podcast, and super guys. But when I chat to a lot of guys, it seems like they need to take a little bit of time to see what the next step is post cycling. You have the benefit of being a few years down the retirement road now, and it seems like you've just built this, empire, for want of a better word. Like, the podcast is thriving. Your Hotel Domestique, which I've never been to, but looks phenomenal. Looks at it's doing brilliant. You have the Grand Fondos, you have the Hincapie brand. Did you have thought in this before you retired that, okay, this is what I'm going to start building, or how did this, movement come about?
So it was just kind of, I'm fortunate that my brother and I are partners in everything we do. And he started the clothing brand while I was racing. And back then my whole, sort of role in that brand was just to bring attention to the brand and what we're doing. So I was lucky in the sense that as soon as I retired, I jumped into, working for the clothing brand. We opened up this hotel, which almost destroyed me a few years later. We started doing
financially or mentally or both.
Both. But you know what? It's all these things like in cycling, when you crash and you get sick, you can't give up, right? You gotta heal up and get better. So I feel like, I was fortunate in the sense that, the hotel was super tough on me emotionally and financially, and didn't think I was going to make it, but finally made it through. And now it's in the best place it's ever been. So I got a lot of these sort of life business lessons that were thrown at me after I retired from cycling. That one, I never got bored, never missed being in the pro peloton for a second, just because I was so busy doing other stuff. And I definitely, I'm grateful that I was put in those positions and I have these things to focus on, because, I think if I didn't have them after only riding my bike for so long at that level, and then not being able to have something to jump into and focus on, it would have been very, very tough mentally to transition. So I was lucky in the sense that I had these things that I could focus on.
Do you still set yourself targets? And this is one of the things I was chatting to some of the, Sven and a bunch of other guys about. I feel like when you're a pro cyclist, everything's mapped out. Like, we have training targets that we're trying to hit for, watts per kilogram. We've our weight targets. And then we have our whole calendars planned out where we know what our objectives are, and they're graded. These are A objectives. These are supporting objectives. And then the pro cycling rug is pulled from under you and you step away from the sport. And you've gone from a life of very focused goal setting to a little bit of drifting through life and not setting these goals. Do you still goal set?
You know what? That's a great question. And even though, like you mentioned, I have a lot of stuff going on, and I still haven't figured it out by any means. I'm still learning. And goal setting is one thing that I'm definitely not as good at as when I was a pro cyclist. But it's a skill that I feel like we can always work on and try to become better at it. But yeah, certainly I focus on the event. Like for instance, we had our event in Chattanooga. Of course, my focus was all about that, making sure that the event was as successful as possible. We have one coming up next month in Lehigh Valley, Pennsylvania. So these are things that, my goals are that they are successful, well thought out events that people appreciate being part of. So yeah, these things stimulate me, but they're not the set hard goals. Like I want to finish top 3 in Paris-Roubaix. I want to, win a stage of the Tour de France. These are things that I'm still learning as well, 10 years later down the road of retirement.
Not to celebrate your stumbling points, but it is super motivating for myself and other listeners because, we've this iceberg theory where you only ever see the tip of the iceberg. You see Rory McIlroy driving the ball 350 down the center of the fairway. You don't see the days he was in the driving range, shanking drives until his hands bled and going home crying and wondering what he's going to do with his life. I feel like that way as well. When I look at the move, I look at the Hincapie brand, the hotel, and I'm like, shit, George has this so well figured out. And I'm trying to build my brand, which is, many multiple smaller than you. And I'm kind of trying to find that trail that you've plotted through business. And it's motivating to know that as I'm stumbling, you've also stumbled on that path as well. And I'm sure there's people looking at my podcast and going, holy shit, he's so big. And they're on episode 4 thinking, oh, I need to quit. But it's great to know somebody else is having the same very human struggles.
Absolutely. I mean, it's, it's constant, and I embrace it. I feel like I know that, it's not, things aren't going to always be perfect. I embrace the challenges, even though sometimes they're really tough. Sometimes you think you're not going to get through, but what's the best thing to do when you really feel like you're down in the dumps and you're not going to get through? Go for a bike ride. We always got the bike, right? Where you can clear your mind, get out to do that. I still love doing that. I still have my health. I still really, pay a lot of attention to my health. Even probably more, I'm probably much more balanced athlete now than when I was a professional cyclist. As you know, you can't do anything when you're a professional cyclist. Going for a 20-minute walk, you get sore. So I love the fact that I'm able to still stay healthy, work out all the time. And, that's a big outlet for me.
So if you like this video, you should definitely check out this video because I know you're going to love it. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel.